Historical interesting live broadcast plus no CP plus self-entertainment. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to visit the Terra Cotta Warriors in the Mausoleum of the First Qin Emperor, one of the 8 wonders of the world. Excited by the arrival of immortals, Ying Zheng. Is this the imperial tomb of the widow? Liu Bang, holding Lady Qi while drinking. The tombs of the emperors have been dug up, and even visited Liu Che, who was planning to attack the Xiongnu, glanced and said, "I will repair my tomb after the Xiongnu is defeated. It must be more rigorous." Then, we have not opened the great mausoleum of the first emperor, so let's take a look at the Terra Cotta Warriors here. Except for the unique funeral tradition of the Yuan dynasty, almost no one can escape from being robbed of the tomb. In this case, we have to mention the Maoling tomb of Liu Che, Emperor Wu of the Han dynasty, which is a golden chicken that keeps laying eggs. I don't know how many tomb robbers have benefited. Liu Che suddenly looked up and said, "What? I'm going to kill these thieves." Everyone in each dynasty and generation trembled one by one, and the heavenly sound fell into their ears, automatically translated as, "Your graves have all been stolen." However, dynasties have discovered that this is just the beginning. Qin Shihuang and the men behind him, the grudges and enmities of the Maoling family of 3, the 2 phoenixes and their families in the family ethics drama, the Song dynasty Gaoyang River chariot god PK, the Ming dynasty war god. Then, the doctors of all dynasties discovered that the heart salvation pill had been sold out and handed themselves a pill. At first, the people only looked at the joy above the sky, but later on, they found that they had obtained high-yield crops, and strict labor and heavy taxes were slowly easing. Chapter 1. Skyfall. My tomb was excavated. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In 219 BC, Qin Shihuang led 70 ministers of civil and military affairs and Confucian doctors to hold a Buddhist ceremony in Mount Taishan. Emperor Qin Shihuang worshipped the heavens, but suddenly the sky changed, with dark clouds falling into the sky and thunderous thunder coming. The 2 private armor remained unchanged, standing coldly in place to guard their safety. Suddenly, a vision appeared, and the ministers all approached to ask His Majesty to take shelter from the rain. Ying Zheng stood with his hands down and looked at the thunderous rolling clouds, as if he was about to bring down punishment. The Confucian scholars who were already dissatisfied with the first emperor were even more prominent, filled with indignation. Your Majesty conferred the title of Zen and reported to heaven with his achievements. Today, he is in great anger, and the world is at its mercy. I hope your Majesty can reflect on himself, change his methods, and calm the anger of heaven. Li Si was about to step forward, but upon hearing the Confucian scholar's incognito words, he lowered his head to conceal the sarcasm in his eyes. People who seek death cannot be stopped. In an instant, only the thunder could be heard at the top of Mount Taishan mountain. The thunder was still gathering in the sky, which seemed to split into the hearts of everyone, and the breath became tense. Emperor Shi had a majestic expression on his face, without getting angry or lifting his eyelids. "Since you think I have angered the heavens, then I will stand here and see if the heavens are dissatisfied with Qin and me," he said. As for such jumping clowns, they were directly pulled aside by Meng Yi's orders and knelt down to watch the first emperor continue to offer sacrifices. The first emperor fearlessly continued to offer his fiefdom without fear of the changing weather conditions of the dark clouds pressing down on the city. The other ministers naturally regained their demeanor and remained motionless in the fierce wind. Standing one by one in the strong wind, their clothes fluttering, one cannot help but feel that the physical fitness of literati nowadays is still good. Ah! In the originally silent crowd, there was a suppressed cry of surprise. Emperor Shi narrowed his eyes slightly, but when he looked up, he saw a strange light suddenly appearing in the deep and open space. A block that was too regular and large appeared in front of him, with small particles flickering like snowflakes. Slowly, a strange scene appeared inside, with people with strange hairstyles crowded together, and everyone was singing loudly. It turned out to be wiped out at once, and the crowd disappeared instantly, leaving only some strange pits and human figurines. Along with it disappeared the ominous bad weather just now. Your Majesty, this time, Li Si, Meng Tian, and others couldn't stand still, and the ministers didn't care about the sacrificial rituals and strode forward. Emperor Shi raised his head and looked thoughtfully at the sudden scene in the sky. Is this a divine descent? Ouch, the Terra Cotta Warriors are so charming that I can't squeeze them in. Just as everyone suspected that the strangeness was auspicious or inauspicious, a clear and beautiful female voice came through. Although they didn't understand the content, they clearly knew they were complaining. Good morning, ancestors. I am your tour guide. Lin Shu. At the same time, all the live streaming rooms of the Han, Tang, and Song dynasties in different time and space were opened. After thousands of years of time and space, the voice of later generations reached their ears. Emperor Shi looked at the sky curtain and said, Li Si, what do you think of this matter? Li Si lowered his head and bowed slightly, Your Majesty, this is a divine technique. However, as the woman from the heavenly curtain said, she should be from the later generations of the great Qin dynasty. I don't know what she intends to do. This is heavenly punishment, the punishment bestowed upon the Qin by heaven. Faced with the clamor of Confucian scholars this time, Emperor Shi did not show much anger. Since that's the case, I'll see how future generations will criticize. You all listen and see if it's as you Confucian scholars wish, he said then. Just as he knelt down and died, another member was added next to the Confucian scholar. Tang dynasty. In the second year of the Zhenguan reign, the recuperating Tang dynasty also discovered the strangeness of the sky, and many people in Chang'an knelt down to pray and worship. Outside the Ganlo Hall, Li Shimin and today are discussing the Chang'an drought and locust resettlement, observing the sky curtain and asking Fang Xianling around him. Xianling, do you think this is a means for later generations or for immortals to transform? At this moment, His Majesty Taizong has been devastated by the natural disaster and rumors have begun to spread that he killed his brother and forced his father to lead to punishment from the heavens. The appearance of the sky curtain at this moment is unclear whether it is good or bad. Fang Xuanling's face remained calm. Your Majesty's action is to comply with the mandate of heaven. The sky curtain has appeared, and I just want to know if there is a way to relieve the locust plague. Li Shimin burst out laughing, Xianling, you are. Come, let me announce that all the ministers have been attending the Ganlo Hall for discussions. Whether it's the means of the immortal family or the talk of ghosts and monsters, they cannot match the weight of Li Tang's power. De Han, Liu Bang was dressed haphazardly and looked curiously at the sky, causing many ministers around him to twitch their eyes. His Majesty was too reckless. Liu Bang had long been accustomed to the solemnity and strictness of his courtiers, and enthusiastically pointed to the sky curtain to ask, Ancestor. Do you think this generation has the law of immortality in their hands? If I regard her as the ancestor of the great Han, can I bestow it? Endless, no need to endure any more. The ministers who had long been quiet and displeased stepped forward one by one, their heads firmly beginning to speak out to the emperor who was not serious, saying, ####, and Liu Che, who had been separated from Liu Bang for several generations, was feeling depressed about conquering the Xiongnu and could only complain to his uncle Wei Qin. Wei Qin's young face was full of composure. Faced with a constantly nagging and complaining emperor, the general couldn't help but remain calm. In the Ming dynasty, Zhu Yuanzhang immediately looked at the crown prince Zhu Biao beside him and said, Biao, what do you mean by this canopy? When speaking, he is no different from the old farmer who usually stays at home. He always discusses everything with his label, and others cannot catch his eye. But now Zhu Biao is elegant, not to mention in the eyes of Zhu Yuanzhang, a child control, who is a minister struggling to survive under the hands of Lao Zhu. They all wish for the crown prince's position to be more stable. Dad, regardless of whether it's good or bad, you should handle the political matter first and don't make excuses to leave. Although Zhu Biao was also surprised, he looked at his father as if he wanted to use an excuse to leave the matter to him. He could only, disrespectfully, grab his father's dragon robe and look at him with a pair of fearless eyes. Seeing the failure, Zhu Yuanzhang could only sit down with a majestic expression. When he sank, the ministers of the Ming dynasty had to fight twice, but unfortunately, it was his eldest son who exerted pressure without any fear. I can only mutter and continue to correct the memorial. Anyway, in the future, it will be your label. Can you help Dad review and familiarize yourself as soon as possible? Is there anything wrong with that? Zhu Biao remained motionless in handling his affairs as if he had not heard them. His father just keeps getting closer and closer. During the reign of Emperor Yongzheng, who was buried in correcting memorials, he finally went out for a walk, so happy that the eunuchs around him suppressed the panic that appeared in his heart towards the sky curtain. God knows, the emperor spends all day reviewing memorials in the palace, with no more than 2 hours of rest per day. Those around him can still change shifts. Who dares the emperor to change shifts? Then, a new sound came from the sky curtain. Today, we are going to visit the Terra Cotta Warriors in the Mausoleum of the First Qin Emperor, which is known as the 8 Wonders of the World. This remark, no matter what era it is an uproar, except for the Qin monarchs and ministers on Mount Taishan. The courtiers of the Qin dynasty lowered their heads one by one and pretended to be dead. Why did we encounter such a thing? The first emperor, who was declared to have his imperial tomb visited, finally had an angry expression. He looked at the sky with a green and black face, thinking of the dense crowd he had seen before. Isn't everyone visiting his imperial tomb? Suddenly, his face turned even darker. Who in later generations would be so incompetent? The tombs of our ancestors have been dug up. Zulong didn't even know that his great Qin had long been defeated, otherwise he might have had to defeat him on the spot. Chapter 2 6 Kingdoms. Do we don't want face? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Some people are happy, while others are sad. Liu Bang, who represented Qin, laughed even more recklessly when he heard that the tomb of Qin Shihuang had been excavated. Xiao He beside him couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. He couldn't say casually, "Your Majesty, the tombs of the first emperor have all been excavated and visited. You and the first emperor are so close in time, can you still be well preserved?" Sure enough, the next second the sky curtain spoke up to comfort Emperor Shi and stabbed at the mouths of others. Tomb robbing can be traced back to the Warring States period, the historical source of our country. Nearly 400 emperors have been robbing tombs for 5,000 years, and few of them have been stolen. Our first emperor has only developed the Terra Cotta Warriors in the periphery, which is much luckier than his ancestors. From the Han dynasty to the Tang and Song dynasties, Qin Gong's number 1 tomb was frequented by tomb raiders. From the hundreds of raiding caves on the periphery to more than 10 outside his coffin, it can be imagined that tomb raids were rampant. Boldly, these thieves. The first emperor was able to endure and speak up until now, which was already very cultured. The courtiers below didn't know what to say, but they attached great importance to the affairs behind them. In later generations, tomb raids were carried out in coffins, no different from opening coffins. People tend to overlook the later dynasties. However, people all know that the so-called Han, Tang, and Song dynasties are definitely the dynasties after Qin. Lu Che looked surprised at General Wei Qing beside him and said, "Ai Qing, is this the Tang and Song dynasties after the Han dynasty?" Wei Qing, I dare not say, and it is not what I should say. Fortunately, Lu Che has always been accustomed to talking to himself. No, what about my tomb? Has it been stolen? Are you clear about the canopy? Upon hearing this, Li Shimin was equally speechless. Although he was in his prime, he did not consider these things. However, upon hearing that his tomb had been stolen after his death, he did not think he would be one of the few lucky ones. A disheartened 2 phoenixes saw all the summoned ministers come forward to comfort, except for Wei Zheng, who had already come forward and scolded, "Oh no," to advise. Upon hearing Lu Che's resentment and roar, 333 immediately reported to Lin Shu, host, "It seems that Emperor Wu of Han really wants to know about his tomb. He's so noisy." Upon hearing this, Lin Shu glanced away silently and said, "It's okay. After talking about Emperor Shihuang, let's talk about him. After all, his Maoling is another chicken that lays golden eggs." 333, the host is really mischievous. However, this is their second collaboration. Lin Shu can be said to be modern, interstellar, and modern. After finally returning to modern times, 333 still wants to deceive her to personally change history in various dynasties and generations. Sorry, she has already done enough in the interstellar era. Just check the information and report some important events to her ancestors. Now let's see why the Terra Cotta Warriors are so popular. The crowds just came to see the Terra Cotta Warriors, but I suspect they just came to join in the fun. There are more people than the Terra Cotta Warriors in the pit. The Terra Cotta Warriors may not have seen so many people when they fought in the 6 countries. The nobles of the 6 states who were also watching the Sky Curtain in the Great Qin Dynasty. Speak of the First Emperor, speak of the First Emperor. What are you doing with them? Do they want face? Of course, as the camera shows the magnificent construction of the Terra Cotta Warriors, there are also quick-thinking aristocrats of the 6 countries sneering, "The violent Qin dynasty is indeed the violent Qin dynasty, and so many human figurines, sniff." In advance, it should be noted that our first emperor didn't need so many people to be buried with him. These are all pottery figurines, so our ancestors don't have to worry about being thrown down to guard the tomb. Nobles of the 6 kingdoms. You can still beat your face faster. Qianshou of Duqin. That's good, that's good. I thought they were all real people just now. Several times in a row, each dynasty and generation could hear the respect of the later generations on the sky towards the first emperor. Although the title sounded somewhat inappropriate, the attitude was very close. Wang congratulated, "Congratulations to your majesty." Li Si took a slight step slower, and the knife in his eyes brushed against him with a swish. The heavenly curtain must be a close praise to his majesty, and the name of the great Qin will surely be passed down for 1,000 years. If you can't take it out and say it after the dynasty has finished playing, then put it in a different way of immortality. The first emperor's face has already looked much better, and it can only be said that the emperor's psychological quality is good, and he has started to look at his future tombs. However, he is also considering how to prevent these descendants who are not concerned about in the future. Judging by its grandeur, Shihuang Dada is also known as an infrastructure maniac and has no resistance to large buildings. Let's first take a look at the largest pit, the first pit. From the deployment of troops in the purge, we can see that the Qin dynasty's military was undergoing a rectification. These Terra Cotta warriors were very lifelike and fully armed, allowing future generations to know the magnificent feat of the Qin dynasty's tiger and wolf army sweeping the 6 countries and unifying the world. At this moment, Erfeng, who was envious and eating lemons, said, "My Xuanjia army in the Tang dynasty is also very impressive." Lu Che. Isn't it worth praising my general for driving away the Xiongnu? Lin Shu glanced at the 2 ancestors who were eager to compare, feeling helpless. He will talk about your tombs later. Don't worry, neither. The more than 1,300 pottery horses, over 80 chariots, tens of thousands of bronze weapons, and the deep ruts on the ground in Pit 2. With our eyes closed, we seem to be able to hear the sound of the Qin dynasty's golden and iron horses, sweeping across the 6 kingdoms with speed and invincibility, sweeping 6 kingdoms. Alright, if you want to introduce the tomb of the first emperor, focus on introducing the tomb. What's the point of constantly mentioning the sweeping 6 kingdoms? Is it worth mentioning repeatedly that we were swept across? As for the first emperor who was angry at the beginning, he had calmed down to watch the sky curtain and looked at the objects in the Terra Cotta Warriors. He agreed with me. My mausoleum is well designed and can be added later. The third pit is even more unique, with a small area, but obviously a more rigorous layout. We can see that there are 3 steps and 1 post, 2 steps and 1 post, with strict security. It is equivalent to a command headquarters for commanding operations in later generations, where combat plans and military orders are formed and issued. Lin Shu naturally saw the roast of the nobles of the 6 countries, and simply became more critical. Yes, it's the command headquarters that commanded the destruction of the 6 kingdoms, and the remnants of the 6 kingdoms who were swept away. Don't slander me. The Qin Shihuang of the 6 kingdoms said, "Oh, is the heavenly curtain talking to us? Who slandered the immortals?" Qin Shihuang is so simple, no matter what Lin Shu said or called her a fairy. And a group of nobles from the 6 countries who were publicly named, their faces turned blue and purple. Can't they just say a few words? The first emperor had an imperceptible smile on his lips. 333 scanned the changes in his facial muscles and found that there were quite a few internal scenes of the emperor. As a famous historical city, Xi'an has 72 imperial tombs in Shaanxi. Many imperial tombs with achievements and people's sentiments are here. Although it has historical research value, why is it that Terra Cotta Warriors attract the most tourists? Lin Shu's voice suddenly rose, and he let out the people who had disappeared before. There were more densely than the Terra Cotta Warriors on the ground. Many people stood behind and could not see anything at all. The people only saw those people wearing strange clothes and looking wealthy crowded together, and they felt that the immortals in the sky were eating really well. And the wise people of each dynasty and generation all had a stern expression on their faces, indicating that they all had guesses in their hearts. Chapter 3. Eternal Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Because it is the tomb of Emperor Qin Shihuang Ying Zheng, who has been known for thousands of years. After the annexation of the 6 states and the stabilization of the 4 seas by Emperor Qin Shihuang, he ordered the entire country to have cars on the same track, books on the same text, and unified currency and measurement, laying the foundation for a unified country. The Qin system was also modified and adopted by later dynasties as the first emperor in Chinese history to claim himself as king. His achievements in history will never be erased. Not only emperors and generals, but anyone who wants to leave a name in history cannot believe it as they listen to the commentary of the heavenly curtain on the first emperor. Eternal Emperor. Kings like Li Shimin, Lu Che, Zhao Kuangyin, Zhu Yuanzhang, and Zhu Di all looked at the sky with scorching heat, hoping to know their evaluations. Of course, there are also those who criticize the tyranny of Qin. But the most happy one was the first emperor who was in Mount Taishan, and the ministers of the Qin dynasty even congratulated him. Only the 2 Confucians who knelt down before looked at the sky stupidly, and their eyes were unbelievable. Emperor Shi, how could he be virtuous and capable? Next, Lin Shu will tell them who they are. Although the remnants of the 6 states did not accept the state of Qin, in the tide of history, it was unanimously recognized that Emperor Qin Shihuang had conquered the 6 states and swept the world, ending the chaotic situation of feudal separatism since the Warring States period. Lin Shu still felt that he didn't prick enough in the hearts of the nobles of the 6 countries. As a side note, who cares about who the people sitting above are? Who can make them live a good life is enough. In times of war and turmoil, it does not meet the wishes of the people. Also, because the 6 kingdoms were destroyed, they wanted to retaliate against the people of Qin or even the restoration of the country. Do you think the destruction of the 6 kingdoms was due to the tyranny of the Qin dynasty? That's not because the country is useless. If there really is a chance to unify the world, can you still refuse? Is it because the rulers of the 6 kingdoms did not want to sweep the world like Emperor Qin Shihuang? Stop cursing, stop cursing. The person who is still claiming to restore the country's reputation has already had their face slapped. Zhang Liang, who was wandering among the heads of Guizhou, silently looked towards the sky, with a faint hint of crimson at the corner of his mouth. The first emperor looked at the sky with admiration in his eyes, and this later generation said it well. The second is the establishment of an authoritarian and centralized system. The county system of the Qin dynasty continued to run through the feudal dynasties of China. Although there were indeed shortcomings in the early stages, the Qin system undoubtedly laid the foundation for future generations. Upon hearing this, Li Si breathed a sigh of relief. The counties were still divided, but there was no consensus in the court, even though His Majesty had always supported him. But Prime Minister Wang and the eldest son did not support him. Although Li Si would adhere to his political philosophy, he suddenly heard that the Qin system, which could be said to have been created by him, was accepted and continued by future generations. The joy in his heart was no less than being valued by His Majesty in the first place, and he was able to fulfill his aspirations. On the contrary, Wang next to him furrowed his brows. Even though he heard the confirmation from the sky, he still couldn't fully agree with the implementation of the county system. From the perspective of future people, it is true that the county system is correct, but Wang and others are not all fools. At this moment, the state of Qin really does not have a law that matches the county system. Simply put, the system is right, but the law has not kept up with the pace. When combined in this way, it is a bit hasty for quick success. As a sky curtain with biased eyes, it naturally would not lead the Qin dynasty to the end of the death of the second emperor again. The short-lived and charming ancestors, the ending of the death of the second emperor is truly lamentable. But the county system is not perfect. It must ensure the loyalty of local officials to the country. Should local officials have military power? How can the nobles and officials of the 6 countries arrange without causing backlash? And most importantly, how can they win the hearts of the people? Upon hearing these words, Liu Bang almost jumped up and cursed the heavenly curtain. You are so biased that your eyes are boundless. What are you looking at? Isn't this missing a question for Qin Shihuang? Liu Che is also full of sourness in his heart. I don't have any money or anyone. You manage me, Tianmu. I am also your ancestor. Li Shimin asked his courtiers, am I not charming enough? The sky is so biased, just like the emperor. Minister. We also want to know. However, your majesty, please manage your expression first. It is truly lacking in imperial authority. Emperor Shi looked at the sky curtain with a heavy gaze. It was the second time, and within a short period of time, the sky curtain had already mentioned the hearts of the people twice. The tone of the last sentence can be considered as thoughtful. Li Si. I'm here. Li Si naturally wouldn't miss the key point. How to implement the county system. Please draft another memorial. Here. Li Si arched his hand and saluted, saying that the county system was his political ambition, and he hoped more than anyone that it could be perfect. The Qianshou of the Great Qin looked at each other and said, Immortal, are you asking His Majesty to treat us better? Their tone was full of disbelief. Although they couldn't read, they could tell the quality of their tone, especially when Lin Shu spoke so bluntly. They looked up at the sky, their eyes finally filled with hope. Your Majesty, you will listen to the words of the gods, right? They are not greedy, as long as life is slightly better. The people of ancient China have always been the easiest and most resilient group to satisfy, but throughout history, even in the so-called prosperous times, the lives of the lower-class people have not been much better. Thirdly, unify writing, currency, and measurement. Don't think this is insignificant, as there are still some countries that haven't achieved this. If we don't unify the writing, it's like officials from all over the country have to write memorials, and even the first emperor must be proficient in the languages of the 7 kingdoms. This is making it difficult for us, the first emperor. Lin Shu also specially created a cartoon version of a villain with a crown on his head and a black and red body. His chubby face made a sad expression, and a few words floated out. How annoying. Fu Shu, who was far away in Xianyang, was originally worried about the county system. When he saw the image of his father, he couldn't help but twitch his lips. However, whether Fu Shu is Fu Shu or not, the son did not laugh at the father and did not laugh on the spot. People like Liu Bang and Liu Che, who are not bound by details, sit lazily on the dragon chair and laugh. Ha ha ha, what does Emperor Shi look like? It's so funny. Xiao He and Wei Qing, who have crossed decades, surprisingly have a similar heart. Although it may be a bit funny, Your Majesty, can you have a slightly more formal attitude? While Mount Taishan, the place where the first emperor of Qin granted the Zen, was as quiet as a chicken. Many people lowered their heads and closed their mouths. I can't laugh, I can't laugh. This smile may make all 9 tribes say goodbye. The face of Emperor Shi, who had just finished praising the sky curtain, turned black again. Lin Shu saw everyone's reaction with a smirk on her lips, and she did it intentionally. Fourthly, seize the Hetao area and defend against the Xiongnu. It is necessary to mention the Great Wall, which still exists today and is a very famous tourist attraction. There is a saying that, if you don't reach the Great Wall, you are not a hero. Lin Shu brought up the scene of the Great Wall, and when the ancestors saw the dense crowd on the towering Great Wall, their shock at this perspective was put aside and they had the same question. Are future generations so idle? Why do you always travel? The laborers who were building the Great Wall stared blankly at the wall on the sky, feeling a bit dazed as they looked at the stones in their hands. Is this what we built? However, for Qianshou, who was building the Great Wall at that time, it was indeed hard work, but the construction of the Great Wall was necessary. I hope they can receive better treatment. The records of labor service in the Qin dynasty are not as strict as imagined, at least according to the recorded policies. However, there are good intentions in policies and misinterpretations in implementation everywhere. Lin Shu pointed it out, hoping that their days would be slightly better. Under the scorching sun, Qianshou heard the sky curtain seeking their welfare, and some people who were originally restless slowly calmed down. If His Majesty, who is far away in Xianyang, could listen to the advice of the heavenly curtain. They are willing to wait. Chapter 4. Put all my imperial tombs with poison. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Lin Shu also took a sip of water in his spare time, feeling even more disheveled than Liu Bang, who was causing Xiao He a headache. Fifth, the development of the Yu ethnic area and the excavation of the Lingxiu for the southern expedition to Baiyue. She actually hesitated for a moment, thinking that the casualties of the southern expedition to Baiyue were too high, higher than resisting the Xiongnu. However, the credit for pacifying Baiyue did not lie at that time, but the benefits lie in later generations. In order to pacify Baiyue, the great Qin dynasty paid a painful price and expended a large amount of manpower and material resources. The main general Tu Sui died during the war, mainly due to the strong personalities of the Baiyue people. Qin dynasty soldiers were unable to adapt to the local malaria and the crisscrossing mountains and rivers, and food did not keep up before the Lingxiu Canal was opened. The current Emperor Shi has not yet announced the policy of conquering Baiyue in the south, but he has already had a plan in his heart. The land of the world is nothing but Qin soil. In simple terms, he is an ancestor who can't walk on the path when he sees the land. However, hearing that Tu Sui died in this process, mixed with the construction of the Lingxiu Canal, this time will definitely not be short. However, the pacification of Baiyue is not a miscalculation from a historical perspective, and many people have not realized the most important value of Baiyue before the Song dynasty. The dynasties were all unclear, so what value would there be after the Baiyue area was conquered, apart from the endless chaos? After all, in their eyes, that is a wilderness. Lin Shu brought out pictures of rice in Kampa during the Song dynasty and introduced this group of ancestors to the useless land. Baiyue belongs to the tropics, so don't worry if you don't understand it. As long as you know it is very suitable for the growth of rice and other crops, and there are rice varieties that mature 3 times a year. After being moved to the central plains, the adaptability is good and the yield is high. It is the later introduced Kampa rice, which can be combined with current late rice to form double cropping rice and increase yield. Now, both emperors and nobles, as well as the common people, are staring intently at the blurry comparise on the sky, as if they want to imprint it firmly in their hearts. Emperor Shi made up his mind that Baiyu must be defeated. Just how to take it, we need to discuss it carefully. The soldiers of the Qin dynasty were even more excited. If they could be allocated to the land of Baiyu or bring grain seeds to their hometowns, they would be willing to die in battle in Baiyu. Liu Che, who was already so poor that his eyes turned red, suddenly had nothing left in his eyes. Anyone who told him that he couldn't go to Baiyu to pick seeds would be like digging into the ancestral tomb of his old Liu family. Li Shimin even exchanged a glance with the minister, and Baiyu must take it. From then on, as long as you have listened to the Sky Curtain, you may regard Baiyu as a must-compete place. Lin Shu pointed until the end, and everything else could only be done slowly by themselves. She couldn't provide them with any modern seeds, even if they were given, it wouldn't be useful. Nowadays, the grain seeds are all disposable. Is it possible that she has to buy rice seeds that a country needs every year? Teaching a mermaid is better than teaching a person to fish. Of course, when evaluating the merits and demerits of emperors in historical records, one cannot draw conclusions unilaterally. At the same time, the achievements of emperors cannot be measured by the standards of ordinary people. During the reign of Emperor Qin Shihuang, corvée, military service, and taxation were severe, with severe punishment for minor offenses. This was all because the Qin dynasty took too big a step forward, and he wanted to make great achievements with one person's strength. Everyone knows who he is referring to here. The sigh of the Sky Curtain made people from other dynasties watch the excitement, and the Qianshou of the Qin dynasty couldn't help but want to cry. In a few simple sentences from historical records, it is the suffering of the Qianshou people in the Qin dynasty. Whether it was the elderly Qin people or the people of the 6 states, after unifying the country, they were all Qin people, and they all wanted a peaceful and stable life. Lin Shu was moved and didn't know if her appearance and a few words could slow down the movements of His Majesty the First Emperor, who had pretended to be in the world but ignored Qianshou. Give them a chance to catch their breath. In history, there is no clear indication of who is the eternal emperor among the hundreds of emperors. It is only the ranking of the eternal emperors in the minds of later generations, but each has their own opinions, with only 3 being considered as the most recognized eternal emperors. In an instant, many emperors' eyes lit up. A slightly reserved person still pretends to be calm, like Erfeng, who is already expressionless and eagerly looking towards the sky. I think I can do it too. Of course, there are also some individuals who lack self-awareness. In the aspect of Song Zhenzong, who had just experienced Zen Buddhism, felt that he could do it again. Lin Shu silently said sorry to Mount Taishan, because she was a little late and called it stained. Let's not mention anything even worse about the Song dynasty. Let's wait for her to be mentally prepared before taking stock, otherwise she might have to faint halfway. Some dynasties have such a kind of magic, as long as you carefully investigate their history, there will always be a reaction that makes people blush and their hearts beat faster. The dynasty of Qin was called Han, and today, thousands of years later, we also refer to ourselves as Han people. Emperor Gaozu founded Han, and the true person who forged the soul for Han is Emperor Wu. At this time, Liu Che did not know who Emperor Wu of Han was, but hearing such high praise from the great Han, he was equally honored. Moreover, he had a strong intuition that Emperor Wu was him. Compared to the excitement of the Han dynasty, the atmosphere of the Qin dynasty was not very good. Just as he was named the one emperor for eternity, he knew about the dynasty that replaced Qin in later generations, which is still such a high evaluation. Emperor Shi's eyes were obscure and he remained silent. Looking at the sky, he wanted to see how great the achievements of the dynasty after replacing Qin had been. Li Shimin didn't have any objections when he heard the name, but he was once again disappointed, obviously very discouraged. Changsun Wuji can only come forward to comfort him. This emotional Your Majesty still has it. Don't worry. Before evaluating Emperor Wu of Han, let's first talk about his mausoleum. Lin Shu deliberately stopped at this level, and many people's hearts were suspended in the air, especially Liu Che. When he heard the gloating in the voice of the person in the sky, his chest heaved violently. It's really too bullying. Maoling is the tomb of Emperor Wu of Han, Liu Che. It is the largest, longest built, and most abundant burial site among the tombs of emperors in the Han dynasty. Many people's attention is focused on Maoling, and they basically want to go and collect it for Liu Che. His mood is complex at this moment. Good news. He is Emperor Wu and has been recognized as the one emperor for eternity by future generations. Bad news. His tomb is very popular among tomb raiders and has been visited many times. Furthermore, in the 4th year after the death of Emperor Wu of Han, there were clearly recorded burial objects in Maoling, such as the jade box and jade staff offered by King Kangxu of Shihu, which appeared on the market. During the reign of Emperor Xian of Han, Emperor Wu's burial scriptures and gold boxes containing scriptures also became popular among the people. There are records of the Red Eyebrow Army in Dongzhua's tomb raids in the late Han dynasty, as well as organized tomb raids by local warlords. The results can be imagined, but this is not the result. There are also sporadic tomb raids in the future. It can only be said that wealth move people's hearts. In the Jianzhong Palace, the eunuch looked anxiously at the emperor with his back facing him, worried whether he needed to call the imperial physician. Wei Qin was equally worried and angry upon hearing this. Then he heard very calm words, "It's okay, I'm not angry." Wei Qin's heart skipped a beat. He took a few steps forward and indeed saw the ferocious expression on His Majesty's face, his hands trembling, and he gritted his teeth to maintain a calm tone. "Write it down, in the future, all of my imperial tombs will be filled with poison, the more poisonous the better. Don't you like tomb raiding? Don't you like guarding and stealing? I ask you to pluck my wool." The eunuch immediately stopped him. The significance of the emperor's burial is not ordinary. "Your Majesty, why should he be so aggrieved with those people?" Faced with the crying and earth-shaking obstruction of the internal history, Liu Qina made up her mind and felt a bit dizzy from being furious. Chapter 5. They are all picking my fruit. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 333 quickly gave a big close-up of Lu Zhuzhu, who was now ferocious, as a souvenir. Lin Shu also felt that it was almost over. The first time, let's not say too much. Everyone had no experience, but next time she will know that there is a doctor around her, and she dare not put too much historical materials. During the reign of Emperor Wu of Han, centralization was strengthened, Confucianism was revered exclusively, currency system reform was carried out, the western regions were opened up, and border areas were developed. Liu Che, who had finally arrived at his own home ground and was still waiting for the sky to continue praising, heard such a simple introduction, and his face, which had been twisted but had not yet recovered, became even more convulsed. He couldn't believe it. Is that all? You're too biased towards the sky curtain. Obviously, under the successive blows, the young Liu Che had been so angry that he lost his rationality and directly questioned Tianmu. Upon hearing this, Wei Qin quickly advised, "Your Majesty, there must be your own considerations for the sky curtain. Don't worry for now. Others may not have finished speaking yet." Lin Shu didn't care, she didn't know how to summarize it. The political and economic measures of Emperor Wu of Han should not be ignored, but the brilliance of the twin generals during his reign was too dazzling. Strengthening centralization and currency reform is indeed too cumbersome. Let's first talk about the exclusive reverence of Confucianism. Emperor Wu of Han began to establish the political status of Confucianism in feudal society. Dong Zhongshu proposed to depose the 100 schools of thought and promote the exclusive reverence of Confucianism. From then on, the situation of opening up the 100 schools of thought never came again. As soon as these words were spoken, any dynasty before the Eastern Han dynasty was basically silent and turned to look at Confucian people incredulously. During the Qin dynasty, Confucian scholars were even more excited, wishing to travel to the time of Emperor Wu of Han and work under this discerning emperor. The first emperor looked at them coldly, with a hint of mockery on his lips. Although he was initially shocked by the overthrow of the 100 schools of thought and the exclusive reverence for Confucianism, as an emperor, he had a better understanding of the limitations of Confucianism as a weapon for emperors today. The doctrine of appointing an emperor who has been recognized as the greatest emperor for eternity must be beneficial to the court. So the answer is already very clear: Confucianism has changed their theoretical core, or in other words, made certain modifications that meet the expectations of the emperor. He suppressed the sarcasm at the corner of his mouth and was willing to speak out. From this moment on, Confucianism has been on the path of revising its core and will never return. Simply put, their teachings must uphold rule. Correspondingly, they did play a role in maintaining rule in the social environment of that time. However, with the revision and modification by later generations, various aspects of Confucianism have extended and are no longer the same as Confucius' original Confucianism. I wonder if this meets the expectations of Confucianism. Dr. Rushing, who was just excited, was stunned. His head was dazed by the joy and the wind on the top of Mount Taishan. Finally, he returned to reality. Is Jianmu contemptuous of their Confucianism? Lin Shu did not disdain Confucianism, but simply watched the continuous revisions of Confucianism, showing the later Qingzhou Neo-Confucianism, Liu Wang Xian Confucianism, and the Confucian philosophy of the Ming and Qin dynasties to Confucius and Xuanzi, fearing that they would not recognize it as something they had written. In later generations, Confucian scholars under the banner of Confucius blushed. Those who felt a bit ashamed when spoken out so openly by the heavenly curtain would still feel embarrassed. Of course, there were also some people who were overconfident and lacked self-awareness. However, it needs to be explained that the policies proposed by Emperor Wu of Han and Dong Zhongshu were not as exaggerated as those of later generations, and established a mixed and dominant way of external Confucianism and internal law. Legalism was not active in the court, but the core of the country still relied on law, with an additional layer of packaging. Li Si's ugly face only improved a bit. God knew that he had just heard the speech of deposing the 100 schools of thought, and his first reaction in his mind was to suppress Confucianism. The first emperor murmured, "Is it a mixture of internal Confucianism and external law, and a mixture of domineering in royal ways?" The mainstream of the current court of the Qin dynasty is naturally legalism, which has continued the legalist ideology for many generations, but the times have changed. The first emperor pondered that the whole world was his, so there is no doctrine that cannot be used, no one who cannot work for him. Knowing his conclusion, Lin Shu was choked and quickly turned off the volume. It's truly you, Shihuang Dada. At the same time, there was also the Silk Road opened by Zhang Qian's mission to the western regions. Lin Shu drew up a route map of the Silk Road, and good things naturally need to be shared. Zhang Qian is jokingly referred to as the first person to carry goods. His initial purpose of his mission to the western regions was due to the threat of the Xiongnu, and he wanted to join forces with other tribes to launch a pincer attack. However, he did not expect to have unexpected gains. Now Lu Che immediately had someone start recording, and there was also Qin Shihuang, who didn't have it there. He copied homework with great courage and integrity. Bring it all. Zhang Qian's expedition to the western regions was not expected to take 13 years, and he was also captured by the Xiongnu king. He traveled all the way to Chaisha, Kucha, Dewan, Kangxiu, Daxia, Shache, Lulan, and other places, and explored relevant areas about West Asia and Europe, which had never been fully established on the land of Central Plains before. When Lu Che saw Kong Chu, he immediately remembered what he had said about tomb raiding before, and suddenly became unhappy again. Wei Qing. My heart is tired. When Emperor Shi saw the names of so many small countries, he only had 2 words in his heart. Wanting. Following Lin Shu's words, future emperors also began copying homework. The Silk Road brings crops and treasures from the western regions back to the Central Plains. Grapes originating from the Mediterranean and pomegranates originating from West Asia began to be transplanted to the palaces of the Western Han dynasty. In the Shanglin Garden of Emperor Wu of Han, exotic birds and animals such as peacocks, elephants, lions, ostriches, and most importantly, the heavenly horse of Dewan were found. It is said that the hard-working BMW is the descendant of the heavenly horse. On the streets of Chang'an, a large number of people and merchants with high nose bridges and blue eyes began to appear. In the orchestra of Weiyang Palace, foreign instruments such as hujia, pipa, and kongho were introduced. Even the inventory couldn't come through, and the western regions really looked like a huge cargo box. She simply listed everything. Take a look for yourself. These crops and medicinal herbs have a significant impact and have been passed down gradually. If you don't have them at home yet, copy your homework. Anyway, if you don't copy them for nothing, don't copy them. Even as a stockist, Liu Che couldn't help but ask the people around him to copy faster. Copied palace attendant. Don't rush, your hands are about to break. Your Majesty, you still need to brag. Li Shimin and others were not idle either, because there were still many things inside that they didn't have at the moment. Li Shimin. Mine, it's all mine. As for the first emperor, it is even more like copying everything. However, there is no record of the Silk Road here, which can be considered as copying the homework of later generations. The first emperor, who was originally angry because the later dynasty copied his Qin system, is now ruthless when it comes to copying later generations. As for the people, they all look at the food listed above and wonder when we can plant one for them. Since the appearance of the sky curtain, they have been hoping to plant more and more things, but of course, the rice from Baiyu still holds the top spot in their hearts without wavering. Liu Che, who later realized, looked at his general and said, "Zhongqing, isn't the first emperor all enjoying my achievements? Just thinking about it makes me so angry." Wei Qing hesitated for a moment, but couldn't help but say, "Your Majesty, future emperors have also used the Silk Road you created. Not only did the first emperor enjoy his success." Liu Che reacted and his eyes froze for a few seconds, becoming even more angry. "Tianmu, I'm so pitiful. I'm going to be poor to death." He turned his head and complained to Tianmu, vaguely, with a hint of coquettishness. Wei Qing. Lin Shu also immediately turned his head when he saw it, his eyes a bit sharp. If his champion Ho acted coquettishly, the young men wouldn't come to make up for it. Chapter 6. Big Han Gemini. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, if the maritime Silk Road could be opened up, these places would be relatively close and there would be a large amount of silver and iron mines available. As for how to get there, Lin Shu couldn't give them a boat and could only explore slowly. When she saw the silver and other places she marked, except for the wealthy Song dynasty, it was not an exaggeration for other emperors to describe them as poor ghosts, and their eyes were all as green as wolves. The ministers are all drooling. Tomorrow, no, we will go to your Majesty's place to offer advice later. Dang 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 with the sound of gongs and drums, when it comes to counting the achievements of Emperor Wu of Han, it is natural that the twin generals of the Han dynasty are indispensable. Emperor Wu of Han changed his previous defensive national policy and launched attacks on the surrounding four barbarians, with foreign wars running through most of his reign, destroyed South Vietnam, Minhua, East Vietnam, and North Korea, subdued Chaisher, Lulan, Dewan, Xiqiang, and Southwest Yi, and even two generals with thousands of years of history. Wei Qing and Hu Tsubing. Who were among the top generals on the list. Righteousness and straightforwardness are called martial arts, while strength and enemy virtue are called martial arts. The name of Emperor Wu truly deserves it. At this moment, Liu Che's mouth was so wide that he couldn't close anymore. Looking at the general beside him, he felt that it was a pity that he was not by his side at the moment. Otherwise, the three of them would have to treat their officials well. However, it doesn't matter, his general is here. Wei Qing. Faced with the affirmation of the heavenly curtain towards him, the courtiers were naturally delighted. However, the Grand General had always been smooth and steady, and coupled with the fact that His Majesty around him was somewhat overly enthusiastic, it still allowed him to remain stable. When it comes to the twin stars, let's first talk about the external strength of the Han dynasty before this. Han Gaozu by Dingshan's encirclement understood everything. If it weren't for Chen Ping's idea of bribing the Xiongnu clan, he might have had to first set an example for the two saints of Shuexiang and the overseas students of Huasi originally, Liu Bang, who was happy to have his own descendants fight Han Bones, froze in place, and Xiao He and others dared not speak up. This incident is truly embarrassing, as they are not good at speaking. But who is Liu Bang? His mentality is particularly good. The sky curtain exposes my shortcomings, will you give me some compensation? The first emperor sneered without hesitation, although he didn't understand the rest of the words. It was obvious that he needed to bribe the Xiongnu's clan, indicating how dangerous the situation was at that time. Not hindering his mockery. Simply put, before the emergence of Wei Qinghuatsubing, the Han dynasty could only play defense against the Xiongnu, and then forget about anything else. Han dynasty generals. Stop talking, just count their achievements. Their faces are going to be trampled on, knowing they can't do it anymore. In the 6th year of the Yuanguang reign, Gongsun Ao, Gongsun He, and Li Guangwei led 40,000 cavalry to attack the Xiongnu, and only Wei Qing won along the way. Alas, our general was really dragging us 3 times, but this war at least marked the beginning of Wei Qing's rise. Gongsun He / Gongsun Ao / Li Guang. Stop cursing, no, we are useless. In the first year of Yuanshua, Wei Qing and Li Shi led 30,000 cavalry to attack the Xiongnu, and Wei Qing captured thousands of people next. It's the general's runway. In the 5th year of the Yuanshua era, Wei Qing, along with some lesser-known generals, led 100,000 cavalry to attack the Xiongnu, capturing 15,000 soldiers and 1 million livestock. In the 6th year of Yuanshua, Wei Qing still had the same configuration, killing thousands of cavalry and capturing 19,000 level prisoners. Then, the routine operations of Han dynasty generals came, and Li Guang was of no use. While Zhao Xin surrendered, it has to be said that General Wei's achievements are truly impressive, and the actual achievements of the generals are so simple and unadorned. However, pride belongs to Wei Qing, happiness belongs to the emperor of Han dynasty, and in his heart, he is no different from mourning as a military general who lived alongside Wei Qing. It can only be said that fortunately, Qianmu only named Li Guang and Zhao Xin, otherwise they would all have to follow the real name system to lose face. Li Guang. There's no need to say anything about it. It's really embarrassing to just take it out. Liu Che naturally began to praise his general in his daily life. Zhongqing, only you and Xubing, the generals of the Manchu dynasty, can share my worries. Wei Qing quickly humbly said, Your Majesty's words are important. It is my duty to share the worries of the emperor and the king, and the heavenly curtain only focuses on the achievements of the generals and the recovery from illness. The other generals are not without merit. The most important thing is, don't provoke hatred towards me in front of other ministers. Every time he bears His Majesty's excessive affection, his back is scorching hot, and those are a pair of eyes that he hates to replace. Wei Qing was originally a cautious person, and his nephews Huatsubing and Liu Che Kai were even more like dot-minded. They are all the same, steep and sharp. However, after winning the championship with youthful vigor, he has the capital to be proud of. Next, the champion Huatsubing, who has achieved the highest reputation as a martial arts general, will appear at the age of 17. Huatsubing went to the battlefield and led 800 cavalry to launch a long-distance attack, killing and capturing more than 2,000 Xiongnu soldiers. He won the first battle and demonstrated his military talent in the 2 battles of Heshi. Huatsubing created a classic battle of long-distance raids. He led more than 10,000 cavalry to march over 1,000 miles in 6 days, crossing the entire Heshi corridor from the border of the Han dynasty, and then turned back to directly surrender the Hongxi king and Xiutu king, capturing more than 30,000 enemy soldiers next. It's the battle of the title of the champion Ho. The Battle of Maobei was not only the battle of Huotsubing's fiefdom, but also the battle of the gods. He led more than 50,000 cavalry to launch a long-distance attack on the Wangting of the Xiongnu, which was far away in Maobei. He marched more than 10,000 miles and directly led his army to the Xiongnu's headquarters. After this battle, the Xiongnu were wiped out by the Han army in the southern desert, and the Xiongnu Chanyu fled to the northern desert. The Xiongnu fled far away, while the southern desert had no royal court, and the Xiongnu's power greatly declined. Lin Shu shouted out this passage in his throat. Faced with such achievements, even the first emperor, who had a picky eye at the beginning, had nothing to say. And Meng Tian and Wang Ben, these generals, had a heavy expression on their faces. They were inferior. At the same time, there is determination in their eyes. Since ancient times, there has been no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts, and the generals have their pride in their hearts. They are determined to conquer the Xiongnu. Even if Liu Che had known for a long time, when he heard the sky curtain announcing to the world, or to the emperors and generals of various eras, his heart was as happy as being filled with a bowl of honey water. Speak more, I love listening to this. Li Shimin was also amazed when he heard about the achievements of the inventory champion Ho, but he didn't have as much envy as others. After all, he himself was a Tian's general, and the early Tang dynasty was the era where there was no shortage of famous generals. Next, Lin Shu has to say something that Liu Che won't be happy about. The champion marquis left a profound mark in history, and after him, the title of Wolf Jushu became the highest honor for military generals throughout history. But Huotsubing's reputation is also related to his premature death. He was like a star lent by heaven to Liu Che to attack the Xiongnu. He passed away at the age of only 24, leaving behind numerous speculations about his cause of death. Liu Che. Will my champion Ho pass away in 2 years? What is the difference between being 24 years old and dying young? The smile still froze on his face, and he immediately ordered, hurry up, call the imperial physician to treat the champion marquis. No, bring the champion marquis to the palace, and I will personally accompany him for treatment. Wei Qin was even more difficult to accept. Huotsubing's biological father was unknown, and he had been following him since childhood. When he heard of his premature death, he stumbled a few steps. Is there no grace or persuasion towards Liu Che? Quickly, Huotsubing was summoned directly, and Liu Che held down the person and called on all the imperial physicians from the hospital to come and see them one by one. Wei Qin turned a blind eye to his plea for help and stared straight at the imperial physician. Your Majesty, uncle, actually you shut up. Liu Che and Wei Qin, who knew what he was going to say, spoke in unison. His eyes were full of threats. It's best for you, kid, not to say that's enough work now. They're in a bad mood now. The champion Ho, who had just been praised, immediately pursed his lips and dared not say much. He was not afraid of anything, but the two people in front of him could only admit it. What a shame it would be if such a big person were to be cleaned up. 333 immediately took a screenshot of the expression of the champion Ho, and the material library became increasingly rich. Chapter 7. How later generations can crack without moving. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the Jianzhong Palace, a group of young imperial physicians were about to examine the champion Ho, causing him to lose his temper and reluctantly let go. Huotsubing quickly stood up and jumped to the side to tidy up his clothes. Those who didn't know thought it was some inappropriate occasion for teasing common men. Your Majesty, the champion marquis has indeed suffered physical losses, which should be caused by the previous 1,000-mile raid. It is necessary to cultivate and replenish his vitality. The 1,000-mile raid may sound overwhelming, but not to mention in ancient times, even modern travelers can struggle to adapt to the local conditions, let alone Huatsubing who fights and rides horses, completely wasting his life. Upon hearing this, Lu Che immediately said, "You all need to develop a plan for the adjustment of the champion marquis, and then hand it directly to me and the general." Huatsubing looked dissatisfied and wanted to say something, but at this moment, Wei Qin was stabbed in the eye. If no one were to suppress him, he wouldn't be able to obey at all. He is the only one who can have Emperor Wu of Han and General Wei personally monitor. There is no doubt about the achievements of Emperor Wu of Han, but there is a common flaw in the Lu family's lust. In his later years, he did not escape the point of stupidity in his later years. Although his achievements were greater than his mistakes, he and Qin Shihuang were both regrettable. Why is it that such a simple truth cannot be seen through and is being manipulated by Fang Shi, who the first emperor did not expect that there was actually something about him in this, but Meng Tian's eyes lit up. He hoped that the sky could speak more. They had long been displeased with the group of non-official alchemists in the palace. Lu Che. Just now when you were inventorying the first emperor, you didn't say, "Why did you just point it out to me and just ask someone to bring it along?" Also, you should make it clearer. Lin Shu has no intention of saying everything at the moment, and she still doesn't intend to anger them for her first appearance. Although she has been harming others, she sincerely respects these accomplished ancestors. The achievements of Emperor Qin and Han Wu can be summarized here, and then the two phoenixes can be easily ridiculed. The achievements of Emperor Wu of Han are here. His martial arts skills are undoubtedly there, but it is also a fact that he is engaged in military activities. I hope to give the people time to rest and recuperate in the future. Lu Che reigned for decades, basically throughout the lives of many people, and established the character of the Han family, but the people did suffer from it. Lu Che was resentful, and Wei Qin glared at his nephew who was giggling beside him, being so unruly in front of his majesty. All right, now we're in third place. The joyful sound of the sky curtain was audible to the people, and they didn't know who would make the gods so happy next. Lu Che. Is Tianmu targeting me? Emperor sure. I don't know why, but I always feel a bit emotional. Let's skip the exciting competition in the Eastern Han kindergarten first, then skip the dynasties in the middle that people don't even want to mention, and even skip a repetition of the unfortunate emperor's father who suffered the same fate as Emperor Shihuang Dada. Li Shimin's eyes lit up as he listened, his waist straightened, and he looked at the sky expectantly with a look of wanting to be proud and forced to laugh. He said, "I think this is me." Yes, the third emperor recognized by most people for eternity, Emperor Taizong of Tang, Li Shimin, was also affectionately known as His Majesty Erfeng. The dust settled, and although Li Shimin still had some doubts about Erfeng, what was more about was the joy of being recognized and the relief brought by the shadow of Xuanwu Gate. Then he looked around at the courtiers and praised them. How could a minister disappoint him? One by one, he was praising others so much that they could feel like they were flying high. Even Wei Zheng, who had never spoken well before, brought other emperors to praise him, and he was very smooth with his hair. People from other dynasties also heard the closeness of Tianmu to Emperor Taizong of Tang. Only Lu Che. What was the Eastern Han dynasty? Has my great Han split apart? What is Dong Han kindergarten? Is it because the young emperor was unable to subdue the people and his courtiers rebelled? The first emperor couldn't understand why there were dynasties that were so despised that they didn't even want to mention them. Later dynasties. Because you can't imagine how inexplicable some emperors are. Compared to the incompetence and incompetence of the emperors of the Six Kingdoms, they are not of the same level. As usual, let's start with the imperial tomb. The tomb of Emperor Taizong of Tang, Li Shimin, was named Zhaoling and was buried together with Empress Wendy Changsun. Similarly, the burial items were very abundant. Before he could finish being happy, Li Shimin had already begun to give birth to this familiar saying. Lu Che, however, gloated over misfortune, and when there were more than one victim, joy appeared. Yes, Zhaoling also did not escape the fate of being stolen. In the late Tang dynasty, there was chaos and warlord separatism, and various types of bull-headed horse noodles appeared. One of the warlords, Wen Tao, became famous for tomb raiding. Li Shimin stumbled all over, and Changsun Wuji beside him quickly helped him. The other courtiers also called out to the emperor, but couldn't say anything. It's already the end of the Tang dynasty, and the royal family will definitely have no deterrent power. It's better to expect future generations to open their coffins and come out to fight. Moreover, they were in a state of flourishing, and when they heard the end of the Tang dynasty, their hearts contracted and they couldn't bear it. These thieves are not good people. Li Shimin also knew how he could manage so much, feeling sad and angry in his heart. Upon hearing this news, Emperor Gaozong of Tang, Li Ji, frowned and asked him not to find out who had stolen his tomb. In fact, throughout history, there have been strict laws prohibiting tomb raiding. For example, in the Tang dynasty, it was clearly stipulated that all types of tomb raiders were punished with labor or exile. Those who had already opened their coffins were sentenced to 3 years in prison. Moreover, tomb raiding was listed as one of the most serious crimes and was considered an unforgivable crime. Unfortunately, none of them are useful. Everyone also understands that people die for wealth and birds die for food. Everyone knows that there is definitely no shortage of treasures, gold and silver, in the imperial tomb. If the dynasty is prosperous, but once the situation is weak, it is truly unsettling after death. Lin Shu thought to himself that it was not just a matter of weakness, but the reason for future generations to dig tombs was enough to make them spit out splendid articles. In the matter of tomb raiding, tomb raiders are truly equal to all. From kings, nobles, generals, and even ordinary people, tombs of all social classes have been stolen, and all social classes have participated in tomb raiding. Special mention, Lu Yu, a magical man who served as the governor in the second year of Jianyan in the northern Song dynasty, was falsely titled as the Emperor of Qi by the Jin army in just 2 years. He fought against his old employer, the southern Song dynasty, and even dug up the imperial tombs of several emperors in the northern Song dynasty. Who wouldn't say a strange man? Zhao Kuangyin. Officials. The eunuch noticed the bloodstains on the corners of their mouths and quickly approached, calling for the eunuch Xian Tai. Zhao Kuangyin can't even care about why his great Song dynasty has also split, he just wants to wield his hand against such disloyal and unjust thieves. Summon the princes and princes to come over. If you can't clean up the useless descendants behind, then clean up your son and younger brother. Unfortunately, he still has some anger ahead. And the irritable Emperor Zhezong of Song and his father Emperor Shenzong of Song had already cursed fiercely into the sky, and their courtiers were all spitting out fragrance. The courtiers during the reigns of these two emperors were simply nightmares for future high school students. Li Shimin, who was originally angry, suddenly lost his emotions when he heard about the experiences of the northern Song dynasty, and even felt a little sympathy. What kind of unlucky person is this? However, the northern Song dynasty. Is it the dynasty that replaced them in the Tang dynasty? The first emperor listened to these later emperors' experiences without saying a word, and the mood of the Terra Cotta Warriors being visited had long vanished. And he also couldn't understand why the world he had finally unified would easily split apart in later generations. Chapter 8. Erfeng starts to shake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After inadvertently getting in the heart of the emperor of the Song dynasty, Lin Shu began to focus on Li Shimin. In the future, the Song dynasty will set up a special column to talk about it, so don't bother here. Li Shimin, the second emperor of the Tang dynasty, was posthumously named Emperor Wen. He excelled in both civil and military arts, making him a rare and outstanding emperor with a balanced and excellent balance in both. Ignoring the posthumous title bestowed upon his father by Li Ji, Lin Shu chose Emperor Wen, but it is impossible to overlook his martial arts skills. Before the Tang dynasty, all emperors sat up straight, and the nearby attendants had already prepared paper and pens with ease. Listening to the posture of the sky curtain, it was obvious that it was not an easy task. But you need to copy your homework well. Liu Che, who was unhappy about being copied just now, is now happy. Li Shimin is no exception, he copied confidently. What will happen to himself after copying? The same goes for the courtiers of Xinguan, who can reduce the detours in the middle and benefit the world better. One of the achievements of Emperor Taizong in pacifying the world belongs to Tang dynasty. The Tang dynasty was established in a chaotic era, with warlords divided and each being a dragon and phoenix among the people. There is a possibility of unity, but unfortunately, when encountering an SSR, there is no solution. Because later on, we will introduce this paragraph briefly. As long as we know, although Emperor Taizong of Tang was not the founding emperor, he made remarkable military achievements. His emperor won was not because he was successful in governing the country, but because he was even more outstanding in governing the country. He led the troops to pacify separatist forces such as Shui Rengao, Lu Wuzhou, Dou Jianda, Wang Shichong, and Lu Haida. Among them, Dou Jianda and Wang Shichong had a competitive power in other eras, especially Dou Jianda. Even after his death, the people of Hebei even established the Xia Wang temple and worshipped it year after year. Upon hearing Dou Jianda's name, Li Shimin fell silent. However, the first emperor was surprised by Li Shimin's own military achievements, especially since although the heavenly curtain only briefly introduced his opponents, those who could make the people stand up and worship in the new dynasty must have outstanding qualities. But these are all the defeated generals of Li Shimin, which shows his excellence. This is just one of them. Although Liu Che has 2 generals, he couldn't help but be envious of Li Shimin's achievements. Of course, he wouldn't compare his weaknesses. However, the posthumous title obtained from such martial arts is one, how good should Wenji be? You can copy homework. Comrade Liu Che has become obsessed with copying homework. As for the people after the Tang dynasty, they naturally knew about Emperor Taizong and thought to themselves that if they could achieve half of Emperor Taizong's achievements, they would all be able to console their ancestors. Next, let's talk about his political measures. Simply put, he appointed talents, improved systems, followed advice, and valued the rule of law. The reign title of Emperor Taizong of Tang was Xinguan, and at the beginning of the year, the population of Xinguan was only 2 million households after the war. After decades of efforts by the Xinguan monarchs and officials, the population recovered to over 3.8 million households. Upon hearing this data, the emperor and his ministers of Xinguan all put down their burdens, feeling a strange sense that their goals had already been achieved before they even started. Li Shimin was not overjoyed, only a sense of relief. During the reign of Emperor Taizong of Tang, there were many famous officials, whether they were civil servants or military generals. They knew how to use people well, appointed people on their own, and did not ask about their background. These were the dynasties in which capable officials could exert their abilities. Coupled with the confidence given by his own achievements, as long as officials did not seek death on their own, they could basically start and end well. Many courtiers who were afraid of being liquidated looked at the sky with envy, which was very important to them. While it may be easy to say how to make good use of knowledge, it is really difficult to implement it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many dead rabbits and dogs cooking. Liu Bang. There is a feeling of being connotative. But after thinking about it, he didn't kill anything wrong, it's okay. As for worse, I don't even have the patience to cross rivers and demolish bridges. In terms of system, the system of 3 provinces and 6 ministries has been continued and improved, and the local government has followed the 2-level system of counties and counties. At the same time, the military system of the prefecture has been implemented, which integrates troops in agriculture. The system of equal land distribution, the system of renting and regulating feudal lords, and the system of imperial examinations have all developed. The system of 3 provinces and 6 ministries, as well as the imperial examination system, can be considered as a great national policy to stabilize the court and provide the entry of underprivileged children into politics. The dynasty that copied homework can adopt it according to the national conditions. Li Shimin. I finally know what it feels like to have my homework copied, but it really doesn't feel very good. Lu Che looked at the various systems displayed by the sky curtain, feeling that he wanted everything, and now he had an unreal feeling that the sky curtain had poured out a basket of good things. On the side of Emperor Shi, there was a lot of pragmatism. Except for him, almost all of them began to carve characters. In the Qin dynasty, which had no paper yet, they were all about to carve out sparks one by one. Lin Shu took a moment to take a look and couldn't figure it out. Even if he was told about papermaking now, he couldn't immediately produce paper that could be written on. She could only come up with the development history of paper at the end and let them tinker with it on their own. Anyway, the Mahist school in the past was quite capable. As an emperor, who can use it? Then came the flow of advice. Tang Taizong's heart for accommodating people was not in vain. Just talking about Wei Zheng, who was under the former Crown Prince Li Jianqing's family, he received a beautiful story that was suitable for both monarchs and officials. Although Wei Zheng pushed his monument after his death, he still obediently stood it up again. Silence is the sweet dew hall at this moment. Whether it's the name of former Crown Prince Li Jianqing or His Majesty's overturned monument, it's a bit difficult to say in political affairs at this moment. Li Shimin is a bit awkward. Just talk about the compatibility between the emperor and his subjects in the sky curtain. Don't bring up the rest of the matter. The monument will be erected again after it is pushed, and it's a simple balance. Let's just assume that nothing happened. However, Li Shimin was not a stubborn emperor and said to Wei Jingdao, Xuancheng, I must have been tempted by someone at that time. Wei Zheng's face remained unchanged, as if the tomb being pushed was not his. Your Majesty, there is no need to say much. I know that everything happened for a reason, and I believe that Your Majesty is not the kind of person who can vent his anger, whether public or private. Wei Zheng is really tough. He often makes Erfeng feel embarrassed on the spot, but it's not easy to live a peaceful life. It's not easy to change emperors and have to go see ancestors in advance. Every time Erfeng is scolded, he can only go back to find Empress Changsun to post and comfort him. I also want to post with a gentle, beautiful, and mature big sister, so enviously Shimin, who just felt that Tianmu was speaking for him, was taken aback. Why doesn't this sound quite right? What are you envious of? That is my Guanyin maid. Empress Changsun, who was carrying her eldest daughter Changel in the legislative hall, chuckled lightly. It was rare for a woman to choose her between her and His Majesty. Changel leaned back in his mother's arms, covered his mouth and smiled with curved eyebrows and eyes, Mother, the sky likes you. I also like her. I just like to tease him. After the death of Wei Zheng, Emperor Taizong of Tang lamented to his courtiers, saying, with copper as the mirror, one can straighten one's clothes and crown, with history as the mirror, one can know the rise and fall, with people as the mirror, one can see the gains and losses. It has to be said that Erfeng is truly the kind lord that many literati and soldiers dream of, and the entire society of Zhengguan exudes a top-down confidence. Li Shimin's confidence stems from his own strength and broad-mindedness. He boldly trusts talented individuals, such as Li Jing. Even in the early Ming dynasty, he had to be chopped down to pave the way, not to mention in the Song dynasty, when his generals fell into bloodshed. At this moment, the Ganlu Hall emitted a strong sour smell, and even Changsun Wuji looked at his imperial brother in law in a secluded manner. Li Shimin has a sweet annoyance. My courtiers love me, and no one wants to disappoint me. Feng Xianling looked at His Majesty, who was already trembling with flowers and branches, and somewhat understood what the heavenly curtain meant by the two phoenixes. Chapter 9. Undead Nation, sorry to say. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Next is the military achievements of the Tang dynasty. Emperor Taizong's Tian Khan and Tian Su generals were actually achieved. During the early Tang dynasty, there were many generals and generals. Although Emperor Taizong was a very knowledgeable and effective boss, the competitive pressure at that time was really high. After all, there is a saying circulating about the embarrassment of not destroying the country. Tianmu said some words that they couldn't understand, but it didn't affect their understanding. Emperor Shi and Emperor Wu of Han both stared intently at the sky curtain, and the generals around them also had a comparative thought. After all, the generals under these two were also fought out. In the second year of the Jingguan reign, Liang Luoren killed Liang Shidu and surrendered to the Tang dynasty, which unified the whole country. In the fourth year of the Jingguan reign, Emperor Taizong of Tang shamelessly made achievements. Li Jing was ordered to send troops to the northern frontier, and in this battle, he defeated the Eastern Turks in one fell swoop. From then on, Emperor Taizong of Tang was revered as the Heavenly Khan by the Western regions. It has to be said that naming is quite interesting. General Tian Su and Tian Khan can tell from the same source at a glance. Li Shimin stood up directly, staring at the sky incredulously. Did he really wipe out the Turks in the future? He has only just experienced the alliance of the Wei River, and the sense of shame in his heart revolves around the hearts of the rulers and ministers of the Tang dynasty. Upon hearing this news, Li Shimin will only be even more determined. He will surely be destroyed by the Turks. The people of Chang'an also stared blankly at the sky. Your Majesty, have you annihilated the Turks? Definitely, how could the immortals lie? And your Majesty is so kind to us, and the future is still so powerful. There must be no problem annihilating the Turks. It can only be said that the people of the Tang dynasty were quite confident in their actions. In the 8th year of the Jingguan reign, Tuyuhun invaded the border. How could Emperor Taizong tolerate such provocation? He directly sent Li Jing to lead the army again, and the results were fruitful. The next year, Tuyuhun Fuyun Khan fled into the desert and was then killed by his own people. Emperor Taizong of Tang established a new Tuyuhun king. It's really both delicious and playful Tang dynasty. Is Tu Gu Han also gone? In the 13th year of the Jingguan reign, Emperor Taizong of Tang began again, and this time it was the unlucky Gao Chang who was beaten up. However, it was not Li Jing who led the troops. Ho Junji, Shui Wanche, and others led their troops to attack Gao Chang. In the second year, when King Gao Chang passed away, his son obediently came over to pay his respects. Tang Taizong then established the Anxi Protectorate in Jiaohe City, the capital of Gao Chang, and all countries in the western regions paid tribute to Chang'an de Tang. Oh roar, another one. In February of the 19th year of the Jingguan reign, Emperor Taizong of Tang set his sights on Goguryeo, which was the site of the previous emperor's 3 campaigns. This time, Emperor Taizong of Tang personally led the 6th army to attack Goguryeo from the north of Luoyang. During the battle, the Tang army achieved several great victories, but in the end, due to the harsh environment in Goguryeo, they did not capture it and their troops remained in court. Although Goguryeo was not conquered this time, 10 cities were captured, 70,000 people were relocated, a large number of Goguryeo troops were annihilated, and over 40,000 heads of Goguryeo were captured, 50,000 horses and cattle each, 10,000 iron armor and other spoils of war were seized to Tang. A lot of things. Lu Che looked at the data listed by Tianmu in surprise and said, why did they gain so much from the war? And his great man was beaten to the point of being militarized by him. The first emperor was also envious, and these were all things he had never heard of before. The Tang dynasty was indeed full of martial arts and skilled in warfare. These things alone could fill some of the military funds. As for the Song dynasty, it's okay not to say. I have always been wealthy, but this year's New Year's coins are drizzling. The matter of Goguryeo clearly cannot satisfy Emperor Taizong of Tang. Anyway, I don't know if it's due to the comparison mentality of the previous dynasty or OCD. In the 21st year of the Jingguan reign, Emperor Taizong of Tang ordered the Tang army to invade Goguryeo from both land and water. In December, King Goguryeo ordered his son Mo Lizzi to enter the court to apologize. It has to be said that it is not easy to be a prince of this small neighboring country, and he often enters the court to apologize. Tang Dynasty. Oh Hua, the Goguryeo of Emperor Yang of Sui's 3 expeditions was actually defeated by our Tang Dynasty. Li Shimin looked at his future achievements and felt the corners of his mouth wanting to rise, but he had to suppress them forcefully and couldn't suppress them properly. The military general who was named was even more proud of Yu Rongyan. Qing Yaojin shouted, "The heavenly curtain also talks about the achievements of old Qing." Wei Qijingde next to him nodded repeatedly, and the sky curtain didn't just point out their names. He also wanted to make a name for himself. In the 19th year of the Zhenguan reign, some people who did not believe in evil wanted to challenge the authority of the Tang dynasty. Shui Yantua began to fight against the Tang army and had to admire its courage, and the next year, he was defeated by the Tang army's counterattack. What do you think this was for? Just to send ahead. De Tong. You've already become numb to what you're saying. We're all drifting away, and we don't like these small tribes anymore. Lin Shuyan saw that the Tang dynasty was in the limelight this time, but the fact was that it was all the result of their efforts, not the fabricated results of her favoritism. It is a prosperous Tang dynasty and also a great Tang dynasty. The sky changes to create a vast map. Just the unfolded map is enough to make the blood boil of the rulers and ministers before the Tang dynasty, and the rulers with pioneering intentions greedily look at this vast territory, wishing to include them all in their own territory. Zhao Kuangyin looked at the map above the sky with a group of silent younger brothers and sons, saying, Yanyan 16 prefectures. Shi Jingtang, I fuck your ancestors for 18 generations. However, Emperor Shi immediately dispelled his thoughts, at least not for the time being. Previously, the heavenly curtain had said to let Qianshou slow down for a while, so they should first take down Baiyue and get the grain seeds. As for Emperor Wu of Han, if he dared to mention it, Sang Hongyang would dare to tease him and ask him to kill him first. Do you know how to play? Can't you take a break for 2 years? Chicken laying eggs also needs to be slowed down for a while. Why don't the man bring the Wu hook and collect the 50 provinces of Guanshan? Please temporarily ascend to Lingyan Pavilion. If you are a scholar and a marquis of 10,000 houses in the Tang dynasty, literary officials and military generals had their own great glory. In memory of the many meritorious officials who fought together in the past, Emperor Taizong ordered painters to paint portraits of 20.4 meritorious officials in the Lingyan Pavilion. To be honest, this was an initiative to leave a name for his subjects in the annals of history, but the quality was also good. If the quality is not enough, being forced up may lead to ridicule for thousands of years. Lin Shu is also afraid that some people will start a big wholesale. If she wants to leave her name in this way, she won't stop her. Don't blame her when you are mocked. Upon hearing this, Li Shimin's eyes lit up. It's not excessive to copy something from the future and order something for himself. The rulers and ministers of the Tang dynasty were even more breathless. Which man could refuse to leave a name in history? One by one, the beads were about to come out, and one can imagine how hard one will work after today. Emperor Shi looked at Lingyan Pavilion and then at the courtiers who accompanied the great Qin to unify the world, pondering in his heart. At this moment, Wang Li, the little lion, was silently counting his fingers in his heart, feeling that his achievements could not be mixed up. He didn't know if he would be sent to attack Emperor Baiyue. Lu Che stood up and said, Zhongqing, if I do this, you and Xubing must be in first and second place. Wei Qing. Thank you very much, Your Majesty, for your kindness. When facing other ministers, don't be so straightforward. Hua Xubing agreed quickly, Your Majesty, just put your uncle first, and I'll be second. Wei Qing looked at the 2 monarchs and ministers who had a similar odor, and had already nitpicking most of the court's ministers, feeling tired. However, the generals and soldiers of the Song dynasty looked coldly at the sky, envied by the generals, while the soldiers at the bottom became numb. Why are they called bandit troops? The usefulness of Tang dynasty generals is also related to Emperor Taizong's tolerance and his ability to fight. After all, If he were ranked according to the order of generals, he could compete for the top spot. Later generations jokingly said that in the Tang dynasty, it was embarrassing to bring it up and say that the country would not be destroyed. In the Three Kingdoms era, literati and generals were even more wholesale, but compared to the Tang dynasty's external wars, they were a bit difficult to deal with each other. Cao Cao looked greedily at the generals listed above, wishing they could all be pulled into his bowl. After laughing, Li Shimin looked at the enthusiastic courtiers in his eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, this was created by us in the future. Today, the Tang dynasty has not yet begun, and I and you are able to glimpse the mysteries of heaven. We must not tarnish the reputation of the Tang dynasty. For the Tang dynasty, whether it's civil officials or military generals, their hearts are surging. For the glory of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 10. The Two Phoenix Crying Silently. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This translator is experiencing an error, please try another translator.